Hi everybody, it's great to be back here again. It's Friday. Let's get right down to our Torah lesson. This week's portion, we're beginning a new book called Leviticus, Vayikrah. But before we do so, I just want to remind you that Sunday is a memorial service for the Fogel family. It will be held here in Itamar. 3 years since that terrible massacre. Of course, I'll never forget the terrible night. We were studying this week's portion of Leviticus. It was Friday night, it was a Shabbat. And I was giving a lesson to my family about what the whole sacrifice concept meant. But little did I know that I'd be getting up to running to the Fogel home and finding what we found, and terrible tragedy. This Sunday we're going to be remembering them. And what we do, as our response has always been, is building response. Please help Friends of Itamar continue to build Itamar and let us grow and continue to expand. And we've grown so beautifully over the last few years. And it's in the name of all those wonderful people that have given their lives for the sake of Israel, that we continue to grow and to do Hashem's will here on the land. So please stand with us, and I want to thank, of course, all our wonderful friends that have been standing with us over the years and supporting us and helping us build the land, continue to grow, and that's our response. So please continue to standing with us, and those who have not yet, join us, please, and be part of this wonderful project and help Friends of Itamar build Itamar and to grow and to prosper here on the land. This Sunday, the event's going to be held here. It's going to be a day of Torah study, and then inaugurating a building, a dormitory that's going to be built in their name. That was built already in their name. So please come and be part of that it's a very happy experience seeing the building that goes on over here, and that's redemption. With all the sorrow we've been through, we continue to grow. This week's portion, Vayikrah, Leviticus, is always it's always a portion that's difficult for everyone to understand. What does sacrifice mean? What is it all about? I want to focus again on the beautiful Torah I saw in the Chalban talks about the word Vayikrah. He mentions that Vayikrah is a calling. God is calling Moshe Rabbeinu to come to within the temple. He's inviting him within the temple. And obviously, when the Torah begins with a certain kind of teaching, that's really like a how do we say? It's like a summary of the entire book itself. So the whole book of Leviticus really is hearing the divine calling. Vayikrah Moshe, that God's calling Moses. He's calling every one of us to come close to him. He's allowing us this beauty of being able to cling to Hashem, to be close to God. And that's what we all, as human beings, want so badly in this world, is to really to worship Hashem, to be close to Hashem in this world. And everyone is searching, everyone's looking, how do you do it? But the Torah is very, 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 very precise on how we become close to Hashem. If we think about it, the book of Leviticus is something that we teach to children, young children. We know when we want to begin teaching them the Torah, you always teach them first the book of Leviticus, the book of Vayikrah. And why is that? Because the children are so pure. They haven't been exposed yet to this world of distractions and difficult issues and difficult things, mundane things that take them away. And they're so pure. The purity of children is reflected within the book of Vayikrah. And that's all we teach it to them first. And that's the holiness and the purity that is so ingrained within this whole book. It's all about purification and holiness. That's what the book of Vayikrah is really all about. And here we're going to be studying about the sacrifice. And the center of the sacrifice we know is the temple. The temple was the center of divine service, and the tabernacle was a temporary structure here. Eventually, of course, everything was to make our way to the land of Israel, to be able to worship Hashem in his house, in a home that the divine presence is constantly felt, where prophecy stems from that building. It's like one of the center of prophecy. And if someone wants to constantly feel Hashem in this world, you just go to the temple. And unfortunately, here we are today in modern times without our third temple. We're waiting to be rebuilt. We're waiting for prophecy to be restored to the land. But we're not too far away, honestly. We're not too far away. The fact that we've come from a long way from exile, a long trip through exile it's been, but Hashem has returned us to the land of Israel. And we are very, very blessed. We are blessed to return, and with the blessing will continue to grow as we return and as we build our third temple. The Talmud talks about in the Midrash that if the nations of the world knew how important the temple is to them, they would surround us with regiments, with legions to protect our holy temple. And the fact is that the temple is not only a Jewish experience, but it was really meant for the rectification of the entire world. Because we all came again from the first man, and everyone has a purpose in this world. The 70 nations have a purpose. The people of Israel have their purpose. Amongst Israel, we have the Kohanim, the Levi'im, and the Israelim, right? The Kohanim, the purpose is to do the divine service as emissaries for us. And together, the whole world is rectified and unified. That's redemption, the process. So that's what it's all really all about. And therefore, it's so important for the world that the temple be restored and be rebuilt. And how do we get there? It's the greatest question in the world, right? Here we are. Just this week, the world is, the Iranians are sending missiles to Gaza. Thank God, Israel. God is with us. When the prime minister is in America, just when he has to prove, here it is, he has proof again, like as if he has to prove anything, right? What they want to do to us, the Iranians. But here again, God is saying, wake up out there, see reality, see what's going on in the world. And here, the world's going crazy. Ukraine and things are happening everywhere in this world. Things are going haywire. But the answer is, the only way to really rectify the world and clarify things is by following Hashem. Look at His Torah, the beautiful Torah that Hashem gave us as a legacy, as a gift. And that's the blueprint of creation and how we must follow Hashem to build a world of morality, a beautiful world. And that's by following the Torah. So Vayikrah is this calling that God is literally calling to everyone, sending out the waves, please come close to me. And through the temple, allow my temple to be restored. It's interesting that we know when Bilam, the evil prophet of the nations, Bilam Rasha, we know that when God calls him, he uses a different, very similar language, but different. He says, Vayikrah, right? Without the aleph. And it's explained, it's like Rashi brought down in our sources, is that the word we know, Vayikrah, comes from the word mikreh. Like when God turns to Bilam, this Russia, and gives him an evil person, gives him prophecies, is only because God needs to give a message over to that point to the nations. But he didn't do any preparation. He wasn't in any way holy. The opposite, he got his power from the evil side, the dark side, entrenched in the cleanliness. The word in Hebrew, kuf resh, yud keri, can refer to uncleanliness. It means uncleanliness. And that's what Bilam Rasha was, and therefore God did not call him with the name Vayikrah, with a full calling, but it was something like, hey, by the way. It also means like, by the way, mikreh. And that's the way God reached out to the Bilam, the evil Bilam. And on the other hand, Vayikrah is a calling of holiness. God calling out to Moshe Rabbeinu, again, when he's calling out and showing those who make themselves a vessel of spirituality and holiness and purity. That calling is not a one-time like thing. Once here I am calling you, by the way, but it's a ongoing calling of the temple, which is going to be a constant voice of Hashem being heard, prophecy stemming from that beautiful building, and that we are so much striving for. We want to reach in nowadays. And we can all ask ourselves, what can we do today, as in modern times, to make this goal come closer? How could we reach it? How could we see a temple nowadays? And the answer, of course, is number one, is that we must educate ourselves to understand the importance of the temple, how it is the center of spirituality of the world. Not again only Israel. I'm trying to say there's a connection. The whole world will benefit from the temple. The world's problems will be solved if we are all worshiping Hashem the way we're supposed to. So number one, we must educate for this area. So important to educate. Number two, we have to pray so strongly to God with all our hearts that to see changes take place in the world, to see His presence being revealed in the world. That's number two. And of course, number three, we have to take positive actions in order to make this happen and to make changes in the land. And of course, this all happens by, number one, helping Israel build this country, returning to the land. And from the next stage, of course, will be strengthening ourselves spiritually. And it's really standing together with Israel and helping Israel reach this level of being able to go forward. And can you imagine one day the government of Israel says, let's build a temple now. So it's educating the world and educating Israel and everyone educating themselves for this great, lofty purpose in the world, which everyone will benefit from. And it comes from the more one person gets close to Hashem, and the more he studies and really truly strives for closeness of the divine, he hears Vayikrah, God calling him, he will help us get closer to that wonderful purpose. But anyway, so I want to stress that. So let us all pray that Hashem helps us, allow us to return to building of the third temple. And praise are never enough. It's not enough to pray. We have to do. So let our actions show that we're really involved and we're educating ourselves and our families to know what we're missing, to feel, to feel the lacking. And that's the thing. A lot of times, when you pray, you have to know what you're praying for, what you're lacking. The world, seems to be complacent, but it's obviously, it's not. The whole world is in turmoil, etc. So please, we have to feel, have to connect ourselves spiritually. And the book of Leviticus really is about the soul world, the neshama. It's all about spiritual levels, and sacrifice is very difficult to understand, but you have to realize it's the most lofty spiritual level, reaching through divine service in the temple. It's nothing greater than the divine service in the temple. And therefore we have to try to maybe study more about that, learn more about what things mean. So hopefully through the study through the book of Leviticus will help us, will understand more about getting close to Hashem and bringing a world to the true redemption we're all waiting for. But anyway, Shabbat Shalom, B'sorot Tovot, Yeshuot v'Nechamot. We'll be in touch very soon. Shabbat Shalom.